What psychological tricks do you know? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Get people to contribute to an idea, and they will be more likely to accept it. Studies show that it doesn't take that much involvement in the creative process to get people to take possession of a proposed plan. Answer. Problem is sometimes they completely run with it then, ignoring any further important input but their own, usually straight at the wall, with the same feeble minds incapable of realizing that I spoon-fed the original idea. If it fails, you're the one to blame, and if it succeeds, it is their glory. Fudge that, I'm not doing that anymore. I just wait until everything's a complete mess, then I take over, make sure that a full responsibility is mine, and make it work. The time that I thought I could climb the corporate ladder by giving my direct supervisor my ideas has been over for quite some time, and my success has been greater because of it, allowing me to finally climb at another company. Story 2. Don't give people the option to say no if you're hoping to extract information. Start your questions with when, why, what, who, how, and you'll get longer answers. Answer, this is what they told us to do when I worked in a call center. No yes or no questions, only open questions. The boss gave us all seminars on the practical psychology of cold calling successfully. It was incredibly creepy how manipulative it was, and the boss ended up showing himself to be a bit of a sociopath after I frustrated him by not being as aggressive as he wanted me to be. So glad I'm free from that job. Story 3. If you greet someone cheerfully, it's likely they will do the same after some time. Then interpret that their reaction is due to liking you. So there is a chance they will like you. Story 4. I know that if you assume a person likes you, you tend to act nicer towards them and like them also. So if you smile and are friendly towards a person, they will assume you like them and be nice to you. One of my favorites. Story 5. If you tell someone you need their help, they are more likely to do what it is you want or need rather than you telling them to just do it. Mushy. Hey, little Jim, when you get done dinner, I need your help in the kitchen. Little Jim. Okay, Dad. Shows up, tell him you're loading the dishwasher, put a couple of plates in, and he'll help, and then thank him after. Or little Jim, after dinner, you need to do the dishes. Little Jim. Fudge off, you old cunt. Big difference. Story 6. Eliminate them with kindness. Works way more than I would have thought. Been using this as at various jobs since I was 16. Nothing makes a shoot boss more frustrated that they can't do anything more than when an employee is nothing but kind to their negative attitudes. Story 7. In my experience with retail, a little kid who won't let go of a toy will happily just hand it over if you say, "Wowee, that's really cool. Can I see?" The parents spend ages trying to tell the kid, "No, hand it over." And suddenly this trustworthy person in uniform says, "My toy is neat? Sure. Take it, dude." Story 8. I don't remember the official name, but I call it the "what color is your shoe" trick. The idea is that if a child is having a meltdown, you catch them off guard by throwing in a random question. Their brain has to shift gears away from the irrational melting downside and back to the rational. What color are my shoes? I've used it. It works great. Answer. This also works in reverse. Although many people just want crying kids and adults to shut the hell up. If someone is crying, overwhelmed with grief, or simply needs to cry out accumulated stress and tension, don't speak to them. Just be there and maybe hold them. Talking to them makes their brains shift gears, which makes it harder for them to properly cry out the emotions and tension they need to let go. Story 9. If you're at a house party holding a bottle of beer, don't hold it up high close to your chest. Instead, hold it lower down below your hip. Body language experts suggest this projects an image of confidence and openness, making partygoers feel more willing to socialize with you. Story 10. People like you more if they subconsciously feel that you're indebted to them than if the reverse is true. Mileage may vary, but if I understand this correctly, it means that you make more friends by asking for favors than by doing favors. Story 11. If you are trying to reassure a person, never say everything will be fine. A person understands that everything will be fine in the future, but he expects a result at the moment, so it's better to support him otherwise. Story 12. Let's say you want to play rock, paper, scissors, and win. If when you ask a person to play, you hold your hand in the shape of the scissors and shake it up and down so that they see it, the person you are playing will more likely choose rock on the first game because they think you will pick scissors. X200B. I have tested this and it worked pretty well. Story 13. Service industry trick. I rarely say sorry to a customer when I make a mistake, instead saying thank you for being patient with me, or something along those lines. Instead of focusing on your error, you're bringing attention to how the other party is great for putting up with you. Answer: this is good advice. It does, however, suffer from diminishing returns when done repeatedly on the same service call. I don't know what company it was, but I was on a call as a customer once where I was thanked for my patience like 7 times. It took everything I had not to yell, "Stop thanking me and listen to what the problem is." No amount of reassurance can fix a flaw in service that the company allows to persist. Story 14. People will usually correct incorrect information. EJ: hey, I found your substances in your X, but my substances are in my Y mix 200B. Unrealistic situation, but you get the idea. Answer: psychotherapist here. This also works really well with trying to get people to talk about their thoughts and feelings, especially kids. If they're resistant or say that they don't know, I intentionally give a clearly wrong answer. As follows: so how did it feel when you found out your spouse cheated on you? I don't know. Well, were you happy about it? No, I was devastated. Story 15. Whenever I have a sad, anxious, depressing, or generally unpositive thought, as quickly as I can, hopefully interrupting the other thought, think of Samuel L. Jackson saying, "I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing," all Pulp Fiction style. Works surprisingly well. Story 16. If you don't like the response you were given, just be completely quiet, leaving a long pause. This usually makes the other person uncomfortable, and they will start changing their answer, often in a favorable direction. Works over phone and in face-to-face conversations. Story 17. Instead of telling someone to calm down, which often only makes people more upset, say something along the lines of, "You don't have to be calm," or "I understand why you're upset." This validates how they are feeling and makes them feel heard, and it often can help them calm down. Answer: I'm a therapist and I have a kid who just sees red when he gets mad. Nothing you say can break his escalation when he's at that level. His parents often react so negatively to him that when I say, "I know that you're angry. It's okay to be frustrated with this. I hear what you're saying," I can get him to calm down a little. Having your emotions validated is so important. Story 18. You can handle anything for at least 10 seconds. When that 10 seconds is up, you just have to start a new 10 seconds. Really helped me out back in the bunker. Story 19. Nod slightly while talking to get someone to agree. Give options instead of telling someone what to do. If someone you like is talking, keep your eyes on their face, but at least once look at their lips, just long enough to see the shape of the top lip. Then go back to eye contact. If you want to know more about someone, lean forward slightly. And if they ask you a question, make your answer connect to what they were talking about. Story 20. This one is really common and well known, and you probably have heard it, but here it goes. Be happy around your enemies. They will be annoyed, jealous in one sentence. It will eliminate them, not literally LOL. Story 21. Stare at someone's forehead when in conversation if you want to intimidate them. Stare at their lips to suggest you're interested in them. Story 22. Figure out group dynamics by telling a joke. If person A looks at person B to see their reaction, there's a good chance person A looks up to who is in love with, otherwise searching for approval from person B, kind of like getting permission to laugh at the joke. Story 23. If you suspect someone of being tragic and ask them if they're going to eliminate themselves bluntly, not if they're going to hurt themselves, harm themselves, thinking of doing something stupid or any other bullshit. Use the words eliminate themselves or commit tragic end. It isn't a hurting thing for them, it's an ending suffering. It won't hurt, it will be a relief. You'll get a more truthful answer. If you get a yes or silence or avoidance, you need to act quickly. That person is in crisis mode. I know when I had issues the first time the drill sergeant asked if I was thinking of eliminate myself or anyone else. I couldn't admit it to myself. I told her not anyone else and left it at that. She took me to the ER immediately and I got the help I needed. A lack of an answer should always be treated as affirmative until proven otherwise. Answer: that is so eye-opening. Thank you for sharing. My best friend was going through something similar, and I didn't want to ask it directly. I asked, should I be worried? And he didn't respond. And because we live in different countries and I knew none of his relatives, I got in touch with his ex-girlfriend whom he admired and respected a lot as a person, and she went near him. But she told me the exact same thing. In this situations, ask them, are you going to eliminate yourself? Because they won't have the need to lie about it if they really feel it. Well, glad you stuck around and you are sharing this with us. Story 24. When someone says something you already know, say, you're right, instead of I know. It acknowledges what the other person said, and you're much less likely to come across as a condescending know-it-all. Story 25. If you want someone to confess to something, accuse them of something much worse. They'll admit to the minor transgression to avoid the major one. Supposedly, it's an ancient Roman method of interrogation. Say a woman suspects her husband of going out bowling instead of working late like he says he is. She accuses him of having an affair, and he insists that he's just bowling, not cheating on her. Story 26. My party trick. Tell someone you want to play invisible go fish. Mime dealing out cards to both players. Hold your hands up to imitate a hand of cards and get them to do the same. Ask if they have any eights, respond accordingly, then let them take a turn. Take 2 or 3 turns back and forth. Make sure you sometimes tell them to go fish, and sometimes you mime handing them a card. After a few rounds on your turn, say, "Do you have any?" and try to peek at their non-existent hand of cards. They will try to hide it. Then you can say, "What are you hiding?" "The cards aren't real." Laughter ensues. Answer, "I like this one. There's an invisible man standing in my palm. He just took off his coat. Can you hold it for him?" Hand the coat over and the person will make a silly, tiny pinching motion with one hand and keep it there. Now shake his hand. Now pat his head. Most people will do this with their other hand. "Do you believe there's an invisible man in my hand?" "No." "Then why are you holding his coat?" Story 27. When you're fighting with someone, don't talk, shoot about them to mutual friends. Especially if they're talking, shoot about you. Just lets them all see what a piece of shoot they are. Story 28. If you are talking with someone and they are at an angle to you, they are uncomfortable and or want to leave. However, if they have the front of their body facing you, then they are comfortable. This has allowed me to steer the conversation sometimes. Also, it helps me diffuse a situation by watching for that stuff. Story 29. Not really a trick you should use on other people, just one to watch out for. Backwards questions. When someone tells you the answer they want to hear, then ask the question. "You don't like her, do you? You're not wearing that to dinner, are you? You passed the test, didn't you?" It's not really a good thing, because if you disagree with their statement, you either have to lie or disappoint them. Usually the person doing it doesn't even realize what they are doing or how manipulative it is. Story 30. When people are angry and things are escalating, anyone can tell you that the worst thing to say is, "You need to calm down." It instantly sets people off. But if you say, "Let's all settle down here," it's no longer an accusation. You're suddenly all in it together. I use this on angry, tipsy people all the time, and it works like a charm. Story 31. Eye contact can make anybody back down, no matter how angry they are. Eye contact in tense situations is like saying, "I'm not afraid of you." And in a lot of conflicts, the person is just trying to scare you into submission. Looking them in the eyes makes the second guess, and you usually will come out unscathed. Source. Grew up in a tough neighborhood. This trick got me out of a lot of trouble. Answer. This has worked in my experience as well. In one-on-one situations, I've combined the eye contact with a soft, monotone, "What are you doing?" followed by a 4 to 5 second pause, and then again, "What are you doing?" And 100 of the time, it has resulted in de-escalation of whatever terrible situation was about to unfold. In some cases, I was even the one that sparked the tension through something I said or did, so the person's anger was actually justified, and they still back down, de-escalate. Story 32. Doesn't work with everyone, but saying "bless you" before someone actually sneezes can prevent the sneeze. It just kinda fizzles. The confused looks are pretty entertaining. Story 33. Say, "I bet I can get you to say," insert color which is not blue. They'll say something along the lines, "No, you can't." Or, "Okay then." Say, "What color is the sky?" They'll hopefully say blue. Then you say, "I told you I could get you to say blue." Then they'll say, "No. You said color you said earlier," which causes them to say the color. Story 34. Making someone talk with their eyes. Whenever a person seems to be hiding something while talking to you, don't ask them again and again. Just look in their eyes. The prolonged eye contact will make them feel too uncomfortable and guilty to lie to you, and they will tell the truth. Story 35. If you argue with someone and you're done with them, just say something completely random and they'll be confused and then just GTFO. Story 36. Smiling release neurotransmitters that makes you happy. Just smile even when you are feeling bad. Edit, not on a funeral, ee. Story 37. Drink a ton of water before going to sleep, so that I have to get up early to pee and not sleep in. Edit. I may have slightly over-exaggerated by saying a ton of water. A glass or two usually does the trick for me. Also doesn't hurt to stay hydrated. Story 38. Honesty, empathy, and listening to their concerns goes a long way when someone is upset with you. After you hear them out, acknowledge their concerns and explain how the process works and where the actual issue arose, as well as what you will do in the future to fix it, even if it isn't in your department. As a pharmacist, I often get super mad people screaming at me, but when they leave, they are super nice and apologetic. Understanding that their frustration isn't due to you, but because they are in pain and you are the last stop after a long fudge day of seeing doctors helps too. People frequently come back or call back and apologize to me, noting how well I handled the situation. X200B, this also generally helps to convince people resistant to taking certain meds to take them. You really need to figure out what they care about in their life and discuss how it will get them where they want to be. X200B. Also, my dad was a super manipulative and toxic motherfucker, and I picked up on a lot of his traits. For a while, I figured I could be a really good serial killer, especially after my military training. But then I realized I could use my manipulative powers for good. Answer: definitely. In customer service, I enjoyed de-escalating people's moods. It was easy to empathize with them, first of all, because we've all been very frustrated. So I let them know that their anger is understandable, because I've been there. Then I try to find a solution, reminding them what the rules are, knowing that sometimes we can make exceptions. And I would try to do that. If not, I'd let them talk to a manager, but depending on how they acted, I'd give the manager a heads up about what they deserve. Story 39. I always oversell favors. People are more likely to help if you say, "Can you do me a huge favor and give me a ride?" than just, "Can you give me a ride?" By setting it up as a big favor, you ingratiate them. Story 40. When in a conversation, 90 of the time you can pretend you're listening, simply by occasionally replying yup or right. Story 41. When you're arguing with someone, go on their point of view, then find out something bad they may say about their point of view. After that, destroy them with it. Story 42. I'm a teacher, and it's exam season. I read something a few years ago that said that physiologically speaking, nerves and excitement are the same thing. So if you're feeling nervous, you should reframe it as excitement, and you'll feel much more positive about the situation. This advice got me my current job. Story 43. One of the most disheartening things I ever found out, people are more likely to like you if you ask them to do stuff for you than they are if you're doing stuff for them. Story 44. To help remember someone's name after meeting them, repeat it back to them as instant reinforcement. Hi, my name's Sean. Hi, Sean. Nice to meet you. Also, if you already know someone with that name, imagine the person you know standing next to the person you just met. My second trick for remembering short words is to imagine a place you know very well, like your house or your office. When you try to remember the words, picture the objects and places around your house. For instance, if you need to remember to buy coffee, cereal, and cheese at the store on your day off, you can imagine the coffee on the desk at your office, the cereal by your computer, and the cheese on your printer. Giving the items an imaginary location helps you to remember what they are as you walk through your office. Story 45. I can do this thing where I make PPL feel like their hands have gone down through the floorboards. My dad taught me it. It's weird. Story 46. Imagine a candle flame in the center of your mind's eye. Push all your doubts, anxieties, anger, fear, sorrow into that fire. Feed it all that you can and let it burn everything into cinders. Don't worry that your mind will come up with too many things, because all of that is just more fuel for the fire. Find calm in the emptiness. Your worries are now just ashes falling away into the infinite darkness. Only the flame remains. Repeat as necessary. Control your breath. Close your eyes. And when you've found some peace, let that immortal flame wink out to use another time. Story 47. Saying someone's name a lot makes them like and trust you more. Because when someone says your name often, you subconsciously feel like they're paying more attention to you and went to the effort to memorize your name. Used so often it feels a little weird, and it's quite likely the person will automatically like you more because they think you like them a lot. Edit. Since there's a lot of people saying this is wrong because it's a shoot salesman technique, which it is, I want to clarify that I've never ever been in any situation close to a salesman type of conversation, and that I meant in the workplace with people you already kind of know, or your boss or coworker, and obviously don't be a fudge creep. It's meant to be dropped in sentences like salt into pasta. Don't open the lid and empty the bottle of salt into it. Sprinkle. Of course, it's fudge weird if you say someone's name over and over again when speaking to them. It's just meant to be a dash here and there. Unless you're a salesperson. I get it. And I'm not speaking for salespeople, so I apologize for touching a nerve with a lot of people who've experienced weird salespeople. Basically, of course, use in limited quantities. Don't be creepy is my #1 psychological trick. Answer. Well, vegan Connor, I'm not sure this works as well as you may think. A lot of people would interpret it as less sincere because it's not how a friend or close acquaintance would talk to you. Vegan Connor, imagine if you just met someone and they kept saying your name over and over again. You're a smart guy, Vegan Connor, so you would realize that's not how normal conversations occur. You might start to suspect, Vegan Connor, that this person is trying to create a false sense of familiarity. Why would they do that, Vegan Connor? Vegan Connor, what could they be trying to gain? You got it, Vegan Connor. They are trying to get you to trust them before you even know them. Of course, you know anyone trying to trick you into trusting them isn't trustworthy. Right, Vegan Connor? Story 48. I call this trick a shoot sandwich, where if you have something negative you want to tell someone, you tell them something positive before and after the negative thing. This works because people pay the most attention to and remember the first and last thing people say, and it helps soften the blow. This also works when conveying a list of information to someone, where you put the most important information at the beginning and end, and all the less important shoot in the middle. People would rather eat a shoot sandwich than just a shoot. Story 49. If you want to get someone to give you something, let's say you want 10, first ask them to borrow 100, or something that's more than you want, and when they refuse, ask for your original price. They are more likely to give you the 10 because they feel bad for refusing the first time. Also, if you give something to someone while having a conversation, they will naturally take it. Works better if they are more engaged in the conversation. Story 50. I get people to do things for me by thanking them for doing things before they do. People like to meet expectations. The latest one I did was recent. X200B. I am in a wheelchair and need a ramp in my parking lot to get to the sidewalk. It's not official, so anyone can use the parking spot that blocks it. One day I saw a neighbor take the spot next to it. I thanked him for being considerate to leave that spot open. He never parks there anymore. X200B. As a manager at work, I did this all the time. Thanked employees for doing the silliest shoot, and they kept doing it. Story 51. At concerts, when you want people to move, lean lightly against them. Even in concerts where it's packed, constant light pressure usually gets someone to completely move, even in the most crowded situations. And it's not enough pressure for people to know they're being pushed, so they never get mad. Story 52. Giving someone fake internet points can make them feel better, even though the points don't really do anything. Story 53. The first person you look at after making a joke is the person you look up to most and want to impress. Story 54. My dad was trying to get my little brother, 5 years old, to clean his room. Dad was yelling at him and scolding him, and I was sick of hearing it, so I walk in the room and tell Dad I'll take it from there. I asked my brother, "Whoa, is that a motorcycle toy? That's cool, show it to me." So he picks up the toy, shows it to me with sound effects and everything. Then I ask, "So where does this go?" And he shows me where the motorcycle is supposed to go back to. I had the room spotless in under 10 minutes, and my little brother was so happy to show off all his cool toys. Story 55. If you ask somebody what color their shirt is before playing rock, paper, scissors, they will always, I repeat, always pick scissors. Story 56. Say your SO gets a phone call and you're curious what it was about, but don't want to seem nosy or overbearing by asking who it was or whatnot. Ask, "Is everything okay?" After they hang up, and 9 times out of 10, they'll say, "Yeah, it was just so-and-so calling about whatever." Story 57. If someone wants something from you and you don't want to do whatever it is that they want, quickly change the subject when they walk near you prior to their request. I used to do this to a manager of mine at an old warehouse job all the darn time. He'd burst through the double doors and into the warehouse full of authority and ready to demand some lame task, and it'd immediately stop him with something stupid like, "Chris, I'm glad you're here. We need someone intelligent to settle this for us." Who was more influential as a writer and why? Tolkien or Stephen King? And he'd spend time responding carefully, laugh, feel part of the group, then leave without asking us to perform his stupid jerk task. It was great. Story 58. If you're trying to figure out if someone is looking at you, cross your arms. They will subconsciously do it too if they are looking at you. Edit, unconsciously to subconsciously. Story 59. Pretending to write something when the teacher's looking around the classroom for somebody to read. 99 success rate. Story 60. I like the blue jeans trick to life. Example, if your work has a strict dress code, slowly start to dress more casually. If you're reprimanded, just say you didn't know or your formals were being dry cleaned. After a long enough consistency of dressing more casual, nobody will pay it any attention and the rule won't apply to you. Human minds are adaptive and consistent things become background noise. Edit and apply to any life situation. Answer, you must not be very high on the corporate ladder then. Or you're American, where they don't care about such things as long as you're qualified. Try that in Germany, and you'll be disliked by those that want to dress like you, mostly colleagues, and by your bosses because you can't seem to live by the rules. Either way, you'll make a bad impression. Story 61. Mostly manipulative ones that I use to negotiate for more money at work. Like when negotiating salary when you are being offered a new job, start by mentioning a large number so that your actual ask sounds more reasonable. Like, hey, it's not like I'm asking for 100 grand here. I just want something fair to both of us. By throwing out the 100,000 figure, it sets a standard mentally to them that then makes your 60K or whatever sound more reasonable. Of course, whatever number you throw out has to be in the realm of the job you're going after, OBWE. Story 62. Someone says, have you seen my, keys or something? I will reply, is that them right there? But not look or point anywhere. People's brains will fill in the missing cues on their own in random ways, and they'll start spinning in circles frantically. It's really funny. Story 63. Whenever my friend is too tipsy to walk home, and I need to coax him back to the dorm, I tell him we're going to miss the next episode of Game of Thrones, even though we only drink on Fridays. Story 64. I'll throw in one unlike the others. I'm a sound engineer. I make concerts sound like concerts. One really fun trick I use works with cover bands or bands that are really well known. You can weave the vocals in and out of the balance of the rest of the band with more forgiveness, cause everyone is singing along either out loud or in their head. The audience can hear the vocal parts even if they aren't as present. Now that doesn't mean you can basically mute the singer, but it allows you to make an impact in some places. You can really drive your drums on some good fills, or let a great guitar riff take over the lead spot because everyone knows the words and is helping you keep the vocals on top in their head. The other part of this is now on the chorus, or certain words you can add emphasis with different reverbs or delays. Even though it's normal to do that with live music, when you can get dynamic with the vocals, you can really make certain areas in songs pop. I could go on a rant about this in more specifics about how some engineers mix especially certain genres. But this is the psychological trick. This can also work with the band too. There are tons of times where a band member asks for more of something in their wedge ears, and before you reach a fader, they say, oh, thanks, that's good. When people expect to hear something, they usually do. Kind of like how you can trick yourself at night to hearing someone in your house, and you get an internal feedback loop of hearing something. That was a weird example. There are also plenty of psychological tricks you can play with corporate clients, but that's a whole other bag. Story 65. Everyone with kids should look at PCIT, parent-child interaction therapy. Essentially, in families that have difficulty with young children, bad behavior, not listening, aggressive behavior, PCIT works to improve the relationship so that they can regain the typical parent-child relationship. It uses a daily short, special playtime where parents work on reinforcing good behavior. To start, parents are supposed to give praise and are not supposed to ask questions or criticize. That can be one of the hardest things to teach, for the parents not to show them the right way to play. Then as that improves, you work on discipline strategies where the parents direct play more and use timeouts and such if the child doesn't act appropriately or take direction. It works wonders on improving parents' ability to use positive praise when interacting with their problem child, and works on effective discipline strategies for the kids. Legitimately, while I don't think every parent-child needs this therapy, I think it could be beneficial for everyone to review the strategies. Story 66. When I am mad at a stranger, ex-bad driver, I pretend there's someone I actually like and that they just got terrible news and so they are driving distracted. Then I don't feel angry, I feel compassionate and understanding. After all, the anger I drive off with would otherwise only end up ruining my afternoon and no one else's. So I am really doing myself a favor by calming down. Story 67. Tell your friend that they can't tell the difference between semi-skim milk, whole milk, etc. And at the end, put orange juice instead. They're expecting to taste milk, and the unexpected taste of orange juice will trick their mind into thinking they're being poisoned or something and cause them to throw up. I've thought about using this, but I never had, so maybe it doesn't work, but who knows, huh? Story 68. Staring directly on one's forehead in between the eyes while toweling to them makes people uncomfortable. Story 69. The best way to infuriate someone is to let them explain something they are experienced in and then turn to an uninformed person and asking, is that true? Use this information responsibly. Story 70. I don't know if this counts, but if you're stuck in a conversation, suddenly act surprised like you just remembered something. Say, what time is it? Oh no, I gotta go. Then peace out. This usually only works at work. At a party, getting a drink or food is a good out. In any situation, bathroom is a good excuse. Story 71. When someone stares at you, stare back at their shoes. They will look away after a few seconds and won't look again for some time. X200B, saying you are right instead of I know, achieves the same principle of letting the other know you are knowledgeable on the suspect, but will leave a much nicer impression to them, making meaningful conversations more likely. Sa200B, to avoid one-word responses from your opposite, ask absurdly specific and opinionated questions about a certain sport or kind of food, one that forces them to make an explanation. If they reply, they are interested. If you hear nothing, you are safe to say they have absolutely no interest in you, and you can safely unmatch them from Tinder or wherever else you are typing. X200B, people will take bad news better if you hit them with something much worse rather than much better beforehand. Example, Dad, I got a girl in school pregnant. Just kidding, I got a bad grade. Making your actually bad news a relief has a much more positive reception than creating a good mood that ends up being shattered by the bad news. X200B, pay close attention to how people take care of primary attention chores like pets, plants, and trash. People with great and healthy pets, colorful and blooming plants, and empty trash cans are people who have much dedication and have a good touch to frequency, which means they are more likely to not only pay good attention, but do so whenever necessary. X200B, and here are a few for job interviews. Have your feet pointed forward and close together. Spread legs and feet pointing outwards signalizes boredom and too much relaxing. Lean forward all the time to appear interested while keeping your back straight. Do not fiddle with your fingers or nails. It is a dead giveaway to nervosity or otherwise present lack of confidence. Instead, place your hands gently on the handles of the chair or on your lap if the chair has none. It makes you appear more firm, which is most often interpreted as a form of assurance to yourself. If you're about to lie about something or don't want to answer a question, mostly because it lacks relevance, such as questions about your love life, do not look away. Eye contact is how a lie becomes believable and how the point comes across. Lack of eye contact makes you look vulnerable and perceptive to persuasion and will bait people into being pushy. Keep your mouth closed, literally, if you are not talking. Open mouths make you appear too eager to speak and make you look very chatty. In a situation where it's all about straight on-point answers, it's a very great way to ruin whatever impression you made. Story 72. 3 yeses. Want to ask a person out? Ask 3 casual questions that will elicit a yes answer. Nice day out? Whatever, but it needs to get a yes answer. This primes yes or agreement in the E-person. Then ask them out. Answer, I use priming every single day. Want a toddler to do as you ask? Want a good-looking person to say yes to a date? Want your boss to do something? Priming. They think that they made their own choice. If it's something big, I will prime for longer. X. Kid wants a phone. Kid spends October, November, and December finding predicaments to talk about and get themselves into, which display the dangers of kid not having immediate communication with parents. Kid gets phone as Christmas present. Parents feel at ease about their responsible decision. Kid may not even need to ask. Story 73. When you want to make somebody do something, first you ask them for something more difficult. If they say no, then you can ask them for the real thing. As you seem to ease the deal, it is most likely that they will accept it now. Story 74. Nod when suggesting something. I've been a waiter for years and it works wonders. Make it a double? Nod, nod. 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. Story 75. When I was in my 20s, I was at a party with 10 couples. Most were known to each other, but there were some new faces in the crowd. 200B, I thought it would be fun to vote. Men for the women, women for the men, 10 points for the most, 1 point for the least, the person you would like to sleep with, and read out the names. Everyone got upset, women were crying, men were laughing, but we finally decided that we would vote for the top 3 and have 2 people count the votes and name the top 2 people. The votes were put on paper and after the voting were thrown away. 200B, the top 2 people whose names were revealed were obvious choices, but out of curiosity, I went to the garbage pail to look at the votes myself. It was interesting to me that in the top 3 were included 2 of the new faces who were not necessarily the best looking of the losers. X200B, from this I learned that a new face in a crowd can have a potential advantage over others. X200B, apparently this is called a sociogram, and the closest that I have come to having a name for it is called the Coolidge effect, named after the US president. Those interested should look it up. Story 76. If your mind is running wild, stressing about the future, stuff you need to get done, or any negative thoughts really, pull yourself back into the moment by describing what's around you. E.g., I am safe. I am in my bed, in my comfy pajamas, at home, beside my dog, etc. This is a basic trauma coping mechanism I learned from a psychologist. I find it especially helpful when trying to fall asleep, but my brain won't shut up. Story 77. If you want someone you work with to like you who doesn't, sit in their eye line, and if there's a laughing opportunity, then look at them first when you laugh. No idea why it works, but I usually find that the feeling of having shared a joke with someone warms them up to you. Looking at them first, I guess, implies you're seeking their approval or explicitly wanting to share the moment with them. Story 78. If you stare at a person's forehead for about 10 seconds, they either A, get uncomfortable and will do some things just to get rid of you, or B, they will get scared because they think you are looking behind them at something. Widen your eyes and put your hands up slightly, and they will either look behind them or get more and more panicked if they don't look behind themselves. To get somewhere quicker, walk with your head up, back straight, and looking straight where you want to go. People will rarely go into your path if they see you like this. For tall people, if you are walking somewhere, then walk like what I just said. But if people are in your way, go a few centimeters behind them, preferably without them noticing, and clear your throat. When they look at you, they will nearly instantly get out your way since you are taller, which makes an instinct happen. The instinct is tall people are bigger and stronger. Even if you are weak, this does work. Story 79. When someone tells you what they dislike or what they notice in other people that really annoys or triggers them, usually that's something they struggle against in themselves. Answer: not always. I dislike when other drivers tailgate me when I'm already doing 5 over, I'm in the right lane in a busy area of town, and there's room to pass me, and they're just doing it to be a male body part. The only car wreck I've ever been in was an idiot who barreled into the back of my car because I stopped at a stop sign, and he hit me because he was too distracted to slow down stop properly. Ever since then, I'm hyper aware of tailgaters, and I keep my distance from the car in front of me when I drive. So no, I don't dislike tailgaters because I am one. I dislike tailgaters because I got hit by one. Story 80. Studies show when you add studies show to your claim's sentence, people are 78 more likely to believe it. Additionally, studies show almost 60 of statistics are made up on the spot by the claimant. An astounding number to be sure. Story 81. I made up my own personal holiday called Dress Up Monday. Was working in a place where we could wear whatever we wanted, and every Monday I would wear a dress. People would comment on it, and some of the other women started doing it too. It put me in a good mood to start the work week. It also distracted everyone from realizing I never showed up on Mondays before 10 or 10:30. Story 82. I haven't really applied this anywhere as I don't have kids, but I read somewhere something someone did to their sons. It can also work with friends or whatever, but it never came up. Someone wanted to give their kids some cake or something, but they'd constantly bicker over the size of the slice they got or something like that. So what you do is have one of them cut out 2 pieces, but then have the other one choose furs, meaning that kid 1 will cut them even, so kid 2's choice doesn't really matter. Story 83. One I like to use is to end your questions prematurely, to make it more likely for people to give the answer you'd like to hear. For example, you want someone to leave, but don't want to ask them directly. You would then ask something like, so should I get you something? And they'll auto-complete the question, making them more likely to say that they're leaving. Can really work wonders for someone shy and introverted like me. Story 84. I have since 2001 worked in administration in a large university. You get many people sucking up to you. They want a favor. They think you have magic authority to approve their request. Usually you don't. And they use many of the highly voted tips posted here. The thing is, it is clearly obvious when someone is sucking up, trying to ingratiate themselves with you. Story 85. If you want to enslave someone for menial wages, convince them that borrowing money for college will guarantee success in the job market. Story 86. In rock, paper, scissors, the instinct is to pick scissors. Do pick rock works more than you would think. Story 87. I am not really into that, but there is one I use often, and it totally works. You just ask favors of people you want to like you. Small things will do. They will begin to think in the back of their head that they like you. Otherwise, why would they do you any favors? In my experience, it works. Story 88. Get the suspect that you're pretty confident committed the crime that was caught in camera, albeit not in enough detail for the footage to be concrete. Question them, then show them the footage and ask, "Is this you?" 9 times out of 10, when we're certain we've got the right guy, they'll admit it's them and ask for a plea deal. They see themselves on screen committing a crime they recall. At that point, they aren't analyzing it to see if they're recognizable from the footage. They just connect the dots themselves, don't notice that they're genuinely being asked if that's them, and admit guilt. Story 89. My GF uses this all the time. While you're talking to someone, you can hand them whatever you're holding, and they're likely to take it. No questions asked. That is, at least until they need to go about their business and don't know what to do with it. Story 90. If someone has the hiccups, ask them about cows. Last time they saw one, was it standing? What color was it, etc.? Story 91. I have a few. When writing a text, be very careful when you use the words but and. If you put but in your sentence, the reader will mostly remember the part after but. If you use and, the reader will remember both the before and the after the and. If you have someone beginning to get fired up against your coworker or someone else in general, if you want to intervene in order to diffuse the situation, ask the person who's getting angry to explain what has happened between that person and the coworker. It's called the switch, and I've seen UK bouncers use this one on the show. You guessed it, bouncers. When it comes to body language, look at people's feet. They show where that person wants to go or what interests that person at the current moment. Example, if you're at a meeting and you see someone sitting down but their feet are directed towards the exit, they probably want to go as fast as possible and will do anything to do so. Another body language tidbit, if the person you are talking to has their arms and legs crossed, look at which arm and which leg is on top. If they have both lefts or both rights, they can still be talked to and they still listen to you, although scarcely. If the arms and legs are crossed differently, however, left arm on top, right leg on top, or vice versa, you are basically talking to a wall and are wasting your time. Propinquity. This one is useful for those who seek love or at least a relationship, whether it's love or friendship. The idea is that propinquity is the probability that someone will grow closer to you. To heighten the propinquity, you have to stay in the mental space of the person who you want to attract to yourself, but without being invasive. You work with someone and you see them all the time. High propinquity. If you text them after work and or see them outside of the proverbial office, the propinquity goes even higher. If you see the person on the bus but don't even exchange looks, propinquity plummets. Sources: Neurolinguistic Programming for Dummies, Body Language for Dummies, Wikipedia. Search for the term propinquity. Story 92. One I always have in the back of my mind is from the master of psychological tricks that is Darren Brown. Not part of a TV show. He was genuinely walking home in London one night and got mugged. He suddenly started saying to the mugger, "Aren't the walls around these houses really high?" Or something to that effect. The mugger was so confused and thrown off by this bizarre and random line of questioning that he ran off. Story 93. If you look at a chick's lips, it implies you want to kiss them. If they notice and they want to kiss you back, they'll look at your lips too. So we'll do that to kind of gauge if a girl's at all interested. Not foolproof, but a nice little helper. Story 94. If you think anyone is lying about what they did one night or weekend, tell them to say it backwards. If you lived through the events, you'll easily be able to just rewind what you did. If you're lying, you'll have trouble remembering what you said first, second, etc. Story 95. If someone has been standoffish in the past when you have been friendly, treat them the same way they treated you. They'll trip over themselves trying to talk to you. It's weird. Story 96. Nursing trick. To check respiration on a patient, just check their blood pressure. But instead of looking at the gauge, look at their chest rise up and down. If you tell them you're watching them breathe, it will mess up the results. Story 97. I just learned this a few days ago. If you're having trouble coordinating yourself or aren't as good at things you were previously, teach yourself something new. It can be anything, so long as you learn it to completion. This resets your mind and allows you to get back into the flow of things. Someone corrected me on mistaking flow state for autopilot, and while I was reading and learning about it, I found out that teaching yourself something new will reset the flow state and you'll be coordinated good at things again. Fittingly, it fixed the problem I was having, and I now know how to manipulate that. So if I'm ever in the same predicament, I can get myself out of it. I lost some karma for that comment, but I'd do it 100 times over to learn what I did from it. Story 98. To control an unruly group, give them two options that both benefit you, People like to pick what's in front of them, but not think. Story 99. Looking at raw red meat has a calming effect on men. I have it set as my phone background. I don't know if it works on women. Story 100. Look, I said look at me. Do you like this robot? It is round. It sucks dust like no other vacuum cleaner does. Look at me. Story 101. Most importantly, don't use tricks that are well known, like saying their name all the time and making eye contact for a long time. Subtlety goes a long way. Story 102. Ask a question and start with, bet you guys can't answer this. Put question here. Get your answer real fast. E.g., bet you guys can't answer this. What is the capital city of America? Story 103. Be mindful of the immediate thought that follows after an antecedent. E.g., my friend didn't use an emoji when he or she replied, I probably said something wrong. Being mindful of these are the first step to help with anxious thoughts emo. Story 104. If you think that someone is lying to you about a story, ask them to repeat it a couple of times. If it's the same each time, then it's rehearsed and they're lying. But if they add small details each time, then it's more likely TK be true as they remember more and more. Story 105. I root for whatever team my tables are rooting for, if they're drinking a lot, and my tips usually do better because of it. Story 106. This was my favorite in school. Thank bullies who like to insult you and then compliment them. Keep going with everything they say in return. They find it hard to continue, such as this lovely incident I had. Bully. You're a psycho. Me. Thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. You're so kind. Bully. Thanks. You weirdo. Me. Thank you for acknowledging my differences. You are so good at this. Bully. Thanks. Walks away. Funnily enough, they didn't bother me again. Story 107. Asking for more rice at Chipotle triggers an automatic response in which they also give you more chicken without even thinking about it. Story 108. Not sure if this is a trick, but whenever someone starts tailgating me, I wave at them super joyfully. Sometimes they'll wave back after a few seconds in confusion, thinking they must know me somehow, and will often then back off. Story 109. I'm a keeper and trainer for a zoo wildlife show. To get my audience engaged and to clap for the routines, I add one clap. Very casual, as if I'm simply clasping my hands. But the single clap sound triggers everyone to join. And voila, a round of applause. Story 110. I don't know what it's called, but if you in conversation randomly start whispering, it is very likely that the other person will start whispering back. Once they do this, just ask, why are you whispering? Reaction is priceless. Story 111. If someone has horrible breath, take out a pack of breath mints and pop one in your mouth, then offer them one. If they catch the message, they'll take one. If they get offended and accuse you of saying their breath smells, apologize and say that you only wanted to share as not to be rude. The embellishment alone will get them to comply. Either way, you look like the good guy. Story 112. Smile when you speak to someone on the phone. You sound happier and they may treat you better during the conversation, or they will become further infuriated because you remain so god-darn cheery despite them being a fudge. Story 113. When it comes to touch decisions, I always use the flip a coin method. I say that decision 1 is heads and decision 2 is tails. I then flip the coin very high and subconsciously want the coin to land on tails or head, then I know which one I want deep down. Works every time. Story 114. If you ask someone to borrow something from them, they will subconsciously like you after lending you something. I believe it's called the Benjamin Franklin effect. Story 115. When trying to convince someone to do something, making them think it's their idea helps them accept it. So leading them down the path to that idea helps to get people to do what you want. Story 116. If someone has a problem with you or something you did, let them tell their whole story to you before you say a word. Don't start screaming back at them. Once they're done, believe it or not, they're open to suggestions on how to fix things. Now you will find that you have the upper hand in the conversation, so to speak. Take it anywhere you please from there. Story 117. I found that people who are distressed generally find advice upsetting. Unless they specifically ask you for advice or what to do, don't give advice. When someone wants to vent to you about something, they want you to agree that what they're dealing with is awful. Find comforting ways to say, Jesus, that's actually horrible, or that's really rough. You should never have to put up with this. Story 118. Sometimes when I try to understand a person's motives, I play a little game. I assume the worst. What's the worst reason they could possibly have for saying what they say, and doing what they do. Then I ask myself, how well does that reason explain what they say and what they do? Story 119. Pretty basic. If you want an inch, ask for a mile. Basically, ask for more than what you actually want, so that when you get talked down to what you actually want, the other person feels like they got a bargain. Story 120. Always take the leftmost cue. Majority of people are right-handed and tend to go towards the rightmost cue. However, as more and more people learn of this trick, the less relevant it becomes. Story 121. There is a technique called foot in the door. Basically, if you want someone to do you a favor, ask for a much larger favor first, one they are likely to decline. They will likely be more open to the actual favor after declining the larger one. Story 122. If you are in a university, college lecture class, you can do this to get out a few minutes early. After a few days, weeks, it works easily. If there's 10 or 15 minutes left in the class, start shuffling papers loudly and zipping zippers. Others around you will instinctively start doing the same, causing a cascade effect of student noise. The professor will hear it and think class is over and will then let the class leave. Story 123. When you run into a person who likes to argue and has to be right all the time, you know people like this. Just start agreeing with them about everything. Literally everything. It is really hard to argue with someone who agrees with you. They end up repeating the same things over and over again because they don't have a counter argument from you. I used to do this to my mom all the time. Mom, you didn't take out the trash this morning. Why did you ignore me? Me, you are right about that. I failed big time. Mom, I told you to take it out this morning. Me, that's true. Mom, I told you to take it out. Me, yup. Mom, you are the worst. Me, I am. Good call on that one. After a few days, my mom stopped yelling and arguing completely, and we all lived in peace. Story 124. If you want the handbook on psychological tricks for influencing people, then you need this book. Basically summarizes the best research into what makes humans tick. It's randomly depressing how easy we are to manipulate and guide. But the book is worth a read to shield yourself from a lot of these techniques, if nothing else. Story 125. Stare where you're headed instead at the person walking towards you. They subconsciously move out of your way. It's my favorite thing to do. It works like a charm. Story 126. If you do something for someone as a favor and they say thanks at the end, don't say you're welcome or no problems. Instead, say you do the same for me. Immediately, they'll feel indebted to you while simultaneously only being able to agree with you unless they want to appear like a jerk. Story 127. I don't know what you actually call it, but you can manipulate people in a healthy way by appreciating them openly. For a good example, my psychology prof told us a story about a feuding couple. The wife constantly had to nag the husband to take the trash out, and he obviously never wanted to. But the wife learned from another psychology professional that she should stop asking him to do the task for a time until he did it himself without prompting. The time he did it himself, she praised him greatly for it, thanking him and telling him how much she appreciated the effort. That made him take the trash out more without prompting, as long as she thanked him. People like to thanked and appreciated, so when you do it, then people are much more likely to do the tasks you want and do them more happily. I do this with my BF. When I'm depressed or having a bad day, he sends me funny memes or does his best to talk to me and make me feel better. He'll also occasionally do something simple and sweet for me, so when he does any of these, I like to let him know how much it means to me. It benefits me, makes him feel good, and it makes him more likely help me again or help others who need it. The more healthy side of manipulation. Story 128. Think of a number, multiply it by 5, subtract 1/2 of the original number. You just lost the game. Story 129. When driving, if you need to change lanes and there's a car beside you, speed up a little. They'll often speed up with you, opening a gap behind them that you can slow and slip into. Story 130. The sandwich compliment. Compliment, insult, criticism, compliment. That was really good. I mean, it's too salty, but there's definitely a lot of flavor. Story 131. Sometimes my dad might forget to get dinner, but sometimes he also gets upset if asked, "Are you going to make dinner?" Because I sound impatient or svantoia. So I just ask, "What's for dinner?" instead as a gentle reminder. Story 132. When someone is being mean to you and they've done it for a while, ask them in a serious tone, "Why do you dislike me?" I've done this to 2 people, and both times it made them completely change around me. They either denied it and then were never mean to me again, or they tried to come up with an explanation but couldn't. Both times it made them stay away from me, and I haven't talked to them since. No, I haven't been bullied, but they were just the type of toxic person everyone needs to stay away from. I don't know why it works, but I think it probably scares people into thinking they'll be reported for bullying. Yes, it only worked on 2 people, but I know it would make me viciously uncomfortable if someone said it to me. Story 133. It's not exactly the same thing in every language, and I'm not sure if it even works in every language, but I'll try to explain it. I've noticed it work in Estonian many times. If you ask someone if they want something, you can kind of predict the answer depending on if you ask the question in negative or not. For example, do you want something to eat? Or, would you like to eat the last pizza slice? There's a quite high chance people will answer sure or yes or something like that. But if you ask, don't you want something to eat? The answer is usually no. Story 134. Not mine, but one girl tricked a guy into liking her by always having a piece of his favorite candy. One day she showed up without candy, and he began to like her regardless. Story 135. I look at their boobs when I want someone to find me creepy and to leave me alone. Works on men and women. Story 136. I don't know what it's called, but I use it with kids a lot. For instance, if they won't eat veggies, you say, do you want 3 pieces or 7 pieces of broccoli instead of, do you want broccoli? And that usually makes them complain less since they technically made the decision themselves. Works with adults too. Story 137. As an evolutionary neuroscientist, I always help my friends deconstruct their problems down to the most basic human species typical behaviors. It never fails to help someone to make sense of a problem in their behavior, motivation, thought patterns by helping it make sense from the standpoint of a creature that is driven by certain survival instincts. Story 138. If you're in your office and want the person talking to you to leave, just stand up. You don't need to move toward the door or say anything about ending the conversation. Just stand up. They'll wrap up the convo and leave, then you can sit back down. Story 139. When people lie, they are extremely likely to look up and to the left. It's instinctual, but it can be unlearned if they are mindful of it. Story 140. It is easier to make people see their own mistakes if you frame the mistake as being your own and as something you have learned from. Literally did this last night to make my friend realize that she was being irrational towards her boyfriend. Example, me. If I have learned anything from my own relationship, it's that, her. You know, honey, I realize that I do that too, and I'm sorry. Do it to my mom too. Works every time. Story 141. I do this trick quite often, but if you force yourself to smile, eventually you'll be in a better mood. Story 142. Ask them what YES spells, then ask them what EYES spells. At least 55 of the time they will mess up. Story 143. Be polite and kind to others, and they will treat you likewise. Stupid assholes have no idea of your psychological prowess. Story 144. Ask them mind-boggling questions about themselves, things they were not prepared to ever be asked, like, how do you know that's what you really want? And why do you doubt your answers? Story 145. If you use the word because, it literally does not matter, most of the time, what your reason is. X200B. There was a study done at a college that had a busy photocopier, remember those? Outside the library, the test would send someone in to try and cut in at the front of the line. X200B, the results? X200B. It did not make any difference if your reason was because you were late for a test presentation funeral or because you needed to make copies. X200B. Story 146. When you make a phone call smile the whole time, I make a lot of customer calls at work and I feel like it helps, especially with meanie people. Story 147. One more trick. X200B. If you're in a job interview and you get a tough question or one that seems like a false dichotomy, like, which is better, Java or .NET, Angular or Node, Bitcoin or Ethereum, chocolate or vanilla, what kind of tree would you be? Blah, blah, blah. X200B. Just recognize the question, look contemplative, and then ask the speaker what they think. X200B. That's a really good question. I guess it depends. What do you think? X200B. Of course it depends. Now 200B works about 820 of the time, and the person will ramble on hearing their own voice and thoughts, thinking you're the smartest effing person in the world. X200B. I always think of Neo dodging the bullets with this one. Story 148. If you make a fist while asking somebody to play rock, paper, scissors, you'll subconsciously plant the idea of using rock. Then you use paper and beat the other person. Edit. Fudge, I posted this, then read through the comments. This one had already been posted. Story 149. Seems pretty straightforward, but ask inquisitive questions when you meet someone new about whatever it is you're discussing. Even if they leave the conversation knowing little about you, they'll think fondly of your interaction and of you because you listened and were interested. Higher chances for a second conversation or time in the first one where they willingly show interest in you. Then, bam, successful conversation initiated. Story 150. If you want to use praise to get in someone's good books, don't praise them directly. They'll be wary and skeptical. Instead, find a close friend of theirs and get into a conversation during which you should praise various aspects of your true target. The mutual friend will likely report back your praise to the target, and it will bypass their bullshit detector. Story 151. I know that whatever someone insults you or someone else, they're actually saying it back to themselves. That is what makes them angry. Seeing you make the same mistake that they did pisses anyone off. I've used that to great extent when I get bullies, because I can see the sadness emanating from the person. Story 152. For stopping someone from spiraling during early stages of a panic attack, help them ground themselves with some simple questions like, what color are your shoes? Shoot that they can objectively figure out immediately. Once they have established some base truths of reality, you can more easily help them out. Story 153. Put Downy Unstoppable in with bedding only. Your family will learn to smell it and associate it with relaxing and sleeping. Story 154. You've probably heard this before, but I've been using it for years and it's worked wonders. When you need something that someone wouldn't normally do for you, tell them something that's harder to do first. And when they refuse, ask them if they can do what you wanted them to do in the first place. For example, let's say I need water, but I'm too much of a lazy jerk, so I don't feel like getting up and getting my own cup of water. Me. Hey, can you go over to the store to get me something to drink? Brother. No, I don't want to go out now. Me. Oh, well, could you at least bring me a cup of water from the kitchen? Brother. Yeah, sure. Edit. My example got posted all messed up. Now fixed. Story 155. If you want to end a conversation, point your feet and/or hips away from someone and break eye contact occasionally. This signals to them that you want to leave. Simple, but usually effective, except with those who are exceptionally chatty, oblivious. Story 156. 1. If you want to know if someone is interested in you, pay attention to their body language. Theirs will often mirror your own. 2. Similarly to number 1, if you're talking with someone and they remove objects between you, e.g., dinner plate, that's a good sign for you. 3. If you suspect someone is not listening to you during conversation, say their name and it will make them perk up. Story 157. People like being called and addressed by their names. If for some reason you need a positive reaction out of someone, it would probably help if you get their attention by acting on this. I.e., hey, thanks, could you? Etc. Story 158. Always try to underpromise and overdeliver. Say your boss needs you to do a task and he asks you how much time you need. If you know you will need around 1 hour, say that you need 2. When you are finished after an hour, it will give you a much better impression. It also grants extra time if you stumble on unexpected problems. Story 159. Reverse psychology is an awesome tool. I don't know if you guys know about it. Basically, you make someone think the opposite of what you believe. Works like a charm. Michael Scott. Story 160. Active listening. You actually reformulate what the other person said as a question to which you just add a tiny bit of a twist. It makes the other person do all the talking, makes them think you are a very good listener, and think you totally get them. I think mimicking a bit of their gestures would also make them feel more comfortable around you and trust you more. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to see more content like this, you might be interested to know that I've created another channel with a similar theme, especially for those of you who enjoy what I do. I'll leave a link in the description, and I hope to see you there. Take care.